Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the No Prize Podcast. Those astute of you will realise that I am not the professor. The professor is off with his sibling with a hospital appointment, so we wish both the professor and son all the No Prize Podcast power we possibly can. Hope everything goes all well for you, dudes. As always, we are joined by Lucas, who shall never be nicknamed, it seems. Hey, Lucas, how's it going?
Man, I am doing great. Struggling through some of these books. I'm in wonder of the events of the last week or last couple weeks. Unfortunately, Marvel, they're getting their butts handed to them, man. Freaking DC is just freaking clowning. They're even DC. It's gotten so bad that DC is copying title for title the same stuff that Marvel is doing and doing it even better. And that's what I'm talking about. So Forceworks 2020,
Yeah.
DC just put out a title just like it, but they did it even better. It's
Mhm.
called Cybernetic Summer. Cybernetic Summer,
Just rolls off your
and they
tongue.
did it and they did an even better job. So um, Marvel, you guys got to. I think you guys will get it together because you guys got some good titles coming out, some good stuff that a lot of people are waiting on. But right now, you guys are grinding it out right now, just spending time and spending money, man. So,
I,
so what we got
I,
first?
I
Go
think you
ahead.
got. I think you're making a valid point. I think without the pull of like those types of books like the Immortal Hulk, and without the power of the X books, which kind of lost their way a little bit. At least it seems from my point of view. It doesn't seem that you know Marvel have a lot to hang the hat on, do they? I mean, the Empire, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I don't know, man. It just seems to me like just another crossover, doesn't it? It's like just another thing. It's just I don't know. I don't
I
know.
li- I like the story when they did it 3 times ago, right? Freaking this whole Empire stuff, no, because so just to give everybody a context on what's going on, because I know nobody's reading it, because nobody cares, right?
Hey, I
Uh,
read it. I still don't
yeah,
care,
but
but I read it.
Um, everybody understands. Well, everybody kind of understands the whole Kree skull work. Blue guys versus green guys. That's all you really need to know.
Plant
Blue
dudes in
guys
the
versus yeah, blue guys versus green guys. Children caught in the middle. Freaking Avenger versus Fantastic Four. Yeah, whatever, right? But then all of a sudden they decide that they need to pair together because an even greater threat is out there called the Gotati, who I was aware of, and I always. Now here's the thing: I always wonder whatever happened to those guys. So to see those guys actually pop up in the title is great. I just wish it hadn't happened like this. This is not cool. This is not the way I wanted to see these guys at all, man. So once again, what's one of my pet peeves? Good guys versus good guys. Remember, because one of the
yeah,
Prince
yeah,
of the
yeah.
Gotati, he was a good guy, and now he's a bad guy, right? He's full of himself with the whole celestial Messiah thing. The guy's name is Koi. I forget what his first appearance was, but yeah, that's the guy that's trumping around, freaking. He's got all types of stuff going on. But in this particular one, and I mean, let me give the credit to who it is. Once again, we're talking about Empire 3, everybody.
Empire 3,
Um,
good call.
story by Al Ewing, Dan Slott. Script by Al Ewing, art by Valerio Schidi. I'm going to say it that way. Um,
That's way
color artist Marte Garcia. Letterer by VC's Joe Caramunga, and several covers out there. And I'll get to those later. So it's got a full cast, man. It's got all types of going. Which if it's a war, might as well do a whole war going on. Captain America, Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Black Panther, Ghost Rider, Hulk, Thor, the Fantastic Four, um, Emperor Hulking, Super Scroll, Tanith the Pursuer, Captain Glory, Mergen, Koi, and Swordsman. So the whole thing that's going on there's a whole big invasion of Earth,
Mhm.
and all the superheroes they can do right now, except for teenagers because they're outlawed from doing anything superheroish. Uh,
As
Oh
always
God,
happened.
Marvel. Oh God. Uh, they all they're trying to do is they're trying to stave off this invasion. And what they figured out is there's one, maybe they've got maybe one shot, and that is to send Captain Marvel into the sun with the sword, and maybe the thing will freaking kill her, but at the same time, while she's dying, it's going to kill off the big thing that's replenishing the enemy forces. And there's a whole big voice. No, she didn't. Yes, she did. No, she didn't. We love Captain Marvel, even though I, as a fan, I don't love Captain Marvel that much right now. So I could care less.
the next
Go ahead.
the next
Go
book's
ahead.
gonna
Send
be
her to
fun
the
for you
star.
then.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Send her to the sun. I don't care. Freaking let her do something. You know. That's how bad it is. That's how bad it is. So before without I hate to get it straight, but that's how bad it is for some of us that they Marvel understands that we hate this character so much that within her own book, within the last year, 15 new characters.
That's a digression, but yes, I have my own theory. I have my own theory on Captain Marvel, which we'll
15.
get to. But
15, Johnny. 15. One even had her own freaking book for a little bit.
Star,
Star.
yeah,
So we'll get into the other one who will probably get her own book rather than getting ready to just Captain Marvel stuff. But yeah, um, but the big thing is that once again we're marching towards this whole sword saga, and then once again you got Hulkling sitting there with the Star Sword, and then they figure out that the best thing that they maybe do, Black Panther figures out, hey, if you loan me the sword, I think I could do something with it. And then it's like, all right, send it the sword. And I'm like, all right, what's going to happen? Nothing.
nothing.
Nothing. They don't show what's happening with the sword. That's it. That's what every. Oh my goodness. All right. so the so we cut to two people that I don't care about. Once again, I've never even heard of them before. Don't care about them. Tanoth, right?
Mhm.
And the pursuer, or pursuer Tanoth. Um, and guys like, hey, you're kind of suspicious. Who are you really? And then it breaks out, hey, I am Arkil, Empress of the Scrolls, survivor of Galactus, mother of Anel, holy martyr, grandmother to Durek the Eighth, the king of all space.
That's a
And soon
mouthful.
my yep, and soon my grandson will be the absolute ruler of the galaxy. Okay, great, great. Fine. You got somebody's grandmama up there, freaking just acting crazy. And then once again, let's talk about the art. And I'm only going to talk about one panel, and
Go on
that's
then.
that panel right there where she was introduced. Tell me why, out of everything, they've got to bring my eyes down to her crotch. So they got me just look center space at somebody's grandma's crotch. I mean, and this is not even in a normal way. She's like, ugh. Like, hey, take this, Johnny. Take all this. Like somebody's nasty. So like somebody's nasty grandma. So I I I I, I don't know what to think about this. Maybe there's a reason why this was necessary, but I'm gonna let you give your thoughts about it before I go into the covers.
Well, I don't have a lot to say to that. Actually, this book feels like just noise. It's a talky book which kind of explains motives, which sooner or later are going to get switched around to incorporate more good guy fighting good guy stuff. We've already had the revelation that Iron Man was taken in and he feels all bent out of shape about it. There's no action in this book, and this is one of my bugbears when it comes to these types of crossovers. Is that you buy the main series and you think to yourself, I'm going to buy the 6 issues at a ridiculous price. I hasten to add, it's like $4.99 for this book or something crazy. So you buy the 6 issues, and all the key things you want to see happen in it happen somewhere else. And it's
Absolutely,
like
yeah.
why? why even bother? Why even bother having these bookend chapters? You might as well just save yourself 6 issues, all right, and then just kind of put the story in to the other issues. You might as well just do that because I
Yeah.
swear to God, the only people who are buying this book must be buying all the others. I mean, I've bought event books before, and I tend to try and avoid the crossovers where possible because I want the main story. I want this. If I have to go looking for loads of issues from this character and that character and books that I don't buy normally, which I know is the marketing technique, I get it. I'm not a moron. But as a reader, I'm like, you know what? My wallet doesn't stretch that far. It's not Mr. Fantastic's wallet. Yeah.
Yes.
Doesn't
Yes.
stretch. So if you're going to put out a mini series, at least have key parts and key action in the mini series, please. You know?
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
I agree with you on the art. I think the art has a very Marvel style to it at the moment. This kind of this look is quite common. It certainly shows up in the Captain Marvel book, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And yeah, funny enough, I thought the same panel that you pulled apart. I was kind of thinking, not that I'm into crotch shots and all, but I was kind of thinking, why is the front of a dress bent backwards? If
Yeah.
the back of the dress is blown kind of up, why is the front of the dress getting blown the other way? It's like, I'm not particularly into the whole grandma crotch shot thing, although that probably is a thing somewhere on the internet. It's it
It's
just makes no sense from a kind of like, that's pretty much someone looking at the picture and saying, you know what, you can't do that, put something in the way, and that's what's happened. Um,
oh my goodness.
this whole Empire story for me, I'm not going to clobber it because there are people who are like Bud and like yourself love Kree Skrulls, and Bud remembers the Qatari the first time around and all that. So I'm not going to clobber this book, but it is very much an Invisible Woman. I'm kind of like passing this by on the rack. If I didn't have to talk about it, I wouldn't have to read it. So I blame you
Yes.
for me having to read this.
Yes.
You put this together.
I forced people. I forced you to read it because I was hoping that you would come up with some reason why Marvel was trying to charge $150 for this book.
You got me. I mean, and it's a low page count as well. It's crazy. So go on. How many covers are there?
So there was like quite a few. There was like 7 covers out there or something like that. And uh, and then let me pare it down to the basics. The cover there's cover A, then cover E with Tony S. Daniel with the screen with the super scroll on there. Then there was an Ed McGuinness variant cover with Grimm fighting the super scroll once again. And so it's all super scroll, super scroll, super scroll. And then there's a cover G, which was the secret variant cover. And that's probably what pisses me off the most because the way secret variants work is you got to trust Marvel that they're going to have something really good and juicy on that cover that's going to make it worth some money in the near future. No such thing freaking happen. Nobody cares about the grandmother of Derek the Eighth. Okay, nobody cares about anything that really happened in this book. There's so much stuff in there that I don't care about. I say, oh, okay, I would care about that if, but I'm not that crazy. Um, and then uh, they've got like Ben Grimm and all those guys, and I forget the Ages of Atlas, and I forget no the Age of Wakanda. Excuse me,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Ages of Wakanda.
Wakanda.
Yeah, they've got those guys in there, and those are the guys that are on the cover G. That's the one that's $150.
One
And
hundred and $50.
right, and you know what? I don't care. I don't care about the Agents of Wakanda enough. They have had no stories. They're supposed to be the protectors of Africa right now. I haven't had a good story from them where they actually protected anything from Africa or gave any type of insight on Africa whatsoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me to want to spend $150 on those guys. Yet here we are It's a $150 book, which I guarantee you, and within the next 7 or 8 months, you can find for probably $10. So what you've basically come up with is Marvel basically screwed some speculators over who were hoping that something big was going to happen in this book, and it just didn't. Congratulations, Marvel.
And there you go. All
Yeah.
right. So, is this a clobber for you then? I take it.
It is a dumpster fire. It is a Mephisto.
Oh,
The
oh,
Mephisto
we are
for me.
going. It is.
Not
It's not a
yeah,
good
not
thing.
not even mildly entertaining. It's like so bad. So bad. Like what what like you can't set up a panel like okay, something's gonna happen and then just not have it happen. You know?
Oh,
You
Mephisto.
know, I mean, and then you also got to consider this was not a regular $3.99 book. This was a $5 book as well.
It's crazy, isn't it? Absolute crazy. When you got to think about the kind of things that, yeah, the amount of books there are right now, unbelievable. But hey ho. Okay, so there you go. Empire 3 is a bit of a strikeout, it seems. Whilst we're talking Empire, we might as well jump into the next book, which is, unfortunately for Lucas, Captain Marvel 18, written by Kelly Thompson, art by Corey Smith, inks by Adriana Di Benedito, colours by Tamara Bonvillain, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowles. Now, Bud texted us while we were talking about the books earlier this week to what we are going to talk about, and his message to everyone from I'm really sorry I'm going to miss hating on Captain Marvel. So I think Bud is pretty much going to sort of clobber this. So we've already got a clobber in there, in the back there. So Lucas, was there anything redeeming about this book that kind of made you think, yeah, well, you know what this Empire
The
thing is?
number one book this week that sold out.
Is it?
Yes.
No way.
So you tell Mister Antipants to calm the hell down, because this was the number one book that sold out, and there was one reason why. And once again, this comes back to Captain Marvel being so boring, right? So let me give you some context the way I think about some certain characters, and this
Go
goes
for it.
back to this. Go ahead. Uh,
No, go for it. I'm saying go for it.
so this goes back to the '80s ways of writing sitcoms.
Mm-hmm.
Once audience viewership started to wane, and if people started to get bored with the characters, they would do two things. They would bring a dog into the mix or a cat. See,
Okay.
do you hear what I'm saying? A dog or a cat. Or they would bring in a new family member, a long lost family member, or a new baby into the mix, just to spice things up and hopefully bring um, attention to the whole character. So what have we had from Cat Marvel over the last couple of years? We've had a cat, right?
Yep.
We've had Star, who's just a new thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Built off the Infinity Stone, right? And now
Yep.
we had the long lost family member that she never knew about, and I forget what her name is. Like Ark, not it's not Arkil. I forget what her name is,
Uh,
but Arkil or whatever her name is, Inkril or whatever her name is the uh, daughter of her mother that she never knew about. They don't really explain like anything about fathership or anything like that. They just go right into it. Like, hey, um, but let's pull back into what's going on. The Hulkling has had some type of incident happen on another planet, and he needs the newly minted Captain Marvel to serve as the accuser and go check it out and figure out what's going on. She arrives and she finds the troops heavily in battle against this person, right? This person is freaking holding their own up until Captain Marvel flies in, and then the person automatically lays down the gun and say, hey, whoa, 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 go ahead and accuse me, right? So Captain Marvel accuses the person, freaking puts the hammer down, and finds all types of stuff to include the fact that she is her sister, because she can see her mother in her.
mm-hmm.
So after all that, she's supposed to put her in cuffs and take her back to Hawking, but she says, "Forget that. I'm just taking off." Right? Doesn't say where she's going, why she's
No.
going. She just takes off. Right?
Hmm.
And then that is the end of that. And that's all. That's all you need, right? Because I've seen some stuff where there's going to be buddy cop adventures with two happening, right?
Hmm.
So it's going to be a whole freaking menagerie of activity happening. Um, that is worth the price of admission just for at least. So here's why here's why what's funny. You know how many covers there were for this thing? Two, and they
Hey,
were regularly priced. They
good.
didn't go some crazy ass number. They were just regularly priced. You could get them. That's why they all sold out. You could probably there's probably going to be a second print out there or a third print with
Mm.
the sister on the cover. But this is a if you find it on your shelf, go ahead and pick it up because people are definitely interested in this character.
Mhm.
Um, as far as story, you didn't need a story. All you needed was set up to getting us to this character, and then we'll figure out what's going on later. So for me, this is a flame on. This is a you gotta pick this up.
Whoa.
Um,
Okay.
'Cause
Cool.
that's the way to do it. Is it a little too late for Captain Marvel? Who knows? What did you think?
So the character's name is called L'Oreal because we're worth it. Um,
Wasn't that the name of a shampoo?
yeah, that's exactly the tagline. That's cool. Um, I'd like a Captain Marvel book where Captain Marvel gets to be Captain Marvel. Right. So in the last storyline, she got taken over by like a suit, and it was the supreme villain who then used her to go and capture all the Avengers, and then she ended up becoming all the Avengers to defeat the bad guy, and now she's become the accuser. I like that she's kind of getting into a Kree identity a little bit, but what happened to Captain Marvel just being Captain Marvel? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's I don't
Uh,
know.
yeah.
The idea about the kind of adding a character in, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. My problem is that it seems that the Marvel Brain Trust gets one good idea, like, oh, I know, let's bring in a secret brother sister. All right, and you think, oh, okay, that's cool. So they're going to do that, but they're not just doing it in this book. They're also doing it in Spider Woman. There's the hint of a hidden brother in Spider Woman already. So it's like, can you not think of more than one good plot device between everybody that works at Marvel? You know, we've said this before. So often they come up with, you know, key story elements, and then they run them all the same time, the same story in all the various books. I don't know. I thought this book was. I liked the book because I could read it without having too much of the Empire BS thrown in. I mean, yeah, there's going to be some overhang in there. Um, I tell you how bad the Empire is. The Empire storyline. There's a little panel somewhere that says, for reasons why Carol has got the hammer, please read Empire 2. I'm not. I don't need to read Empire 2. I don't. I'm all right. Thanks. Cheers. She's got the hammer. That's all I need to know. Move on. Um, the art was all right. There were a couple of panels where faces seems to change and the they're not consistent. And Sue Storm looks awful. You know, I don't even want to get into that.
well,
Um,
well, between her and Mr. Fantastic, they look like parents right now. They look like they've got a couple of teenagers. They're winding down. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
and I like the colours. I thought Tamara Bonvillain with the colours look great. It gives that book gives it a proper full on epic look vibe. I'm not going to flame on this book. I'm going to Mr. Fantastic because I'm interested to see how it goes. But I do take your point that, you know, Captain Marvel has had shed loads of new characters thrown at her. You know, it, I sometimes think it's a little bit like it's a little bit like Superman in that sometimes the characters are so powerful, you don't know story wise what to do with it. So you've got to put like emotional aspects into it, and
Yeah.
I think that's what Kelly Thompson's been doing for quite some time.
Exactly.
So
That's a good point because exactly the same thing is happening in the Superman book. They're throwing everything they can to keep their readership book up.
yeah,
You know.
so
So um yeah. So yeah. Now that you mentioned the whole DC thing, I just realized that there was another person inside the DC area, DC universe that has a hammer that's swinging around a big old hammer. That's Supergirl.
yeah,
She was swinging around a big old freaking
yeah,
hammer
yeah.
out there. Yeah.
We'll go
So
Zeus, hammer. Right. Okay. So whilst we're going to go and compare our hammers, while we're going to take a break, why don't you go and check out the advert for one of our other pods you can get on the UCPN? All right. Be back in two. Welcome back to the No Price Podcast. I am your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, Lucas, who shall not be nicknamed. We've kind of washed all the empire out of our hair, thanks to L'Oreal, because the shampoo that we all use, because we're worth it, as we said earlier. We're now jumping across to a world we haven't been to for a while. Actually, I don't think we've touched on Xbox for quite some time. So, X Factor #1. There we go. It's written by Leia Williams, art by David Baldian, colours by Israel Silver, letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. Da, da, da. Right, Lucas, take it away, my friend. What did you think?
So this is the X-Men version of Law and Order SVU. That's it. Sorry. That's it. That's it. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. This is the X-Men's version of Law and Order SVU. But seriously, so we've got a whole cast of characters that once again I don't care about. Not even on one.
Not even one of them. Come
Not
on.
even one.
Not even the little
No,
war pup. The war pup's really cool.
some of them made me disgusted just looking at them. I mean, eye boy, really? The dude with like 90 eyes all over his body.
Yeah.
I don't mean to discriminate if somebody has that type of handicap because I know some of y'all are sitting around with 2 or 3 eyes and you got an eye around a belly button that blinks at you and everything. But um,
Kinky.
eye boy, really, you know. Uh, so this no Tempest, Hope, Egg, eye boy, Prestige, Prodigy, Dakin, yeah, Dakin, Wolverine's son. But no, a little bit was too much was made out of his sexual preferences for my taste.
Which is
It wasn't
ironic
really,
considering his dad's doing the mumbo jumbo left, right, and centre.
yeah. It's like, I don't get it. But no, that's the way they want to swing this. All right, I'll play. Um,
That's what he
and
said.
then there's, and then so so what I will take this book as, um, other than being just Law and Order SVU, is that it does explain some roles. It does put some more context into what's actually happening on Krakoa, right? So, for instance, Prodigy, he was just brought back, right? And the most interesting part about it was this little dialogue that says, "Hey, I thought David lost his powers. No, he was just resurrected." Why is that important? Is because Franklin Richards, his fantastic son, has lost his powers.
Yes.
And they've been trying to figure out for like forever how to get his powers back. Just recently, the X-Men have invited Miss Richards, Franklin Richards, to Krakoa. So that would be a way to get Mr. Franklin Richards' powers back. And we got to remember, they've already annotated that Franklin Richards is an Omega level mutant. they limited how powerful he is, but he is an level mutant that's just out there, except for the fact that his power is very limited.
Mm.
So that is one of the most important things about this book.
Okay, that's a good shout.
The other thing is, this is really about the vehicle that carries us through the story of the book is North Star. He's looking for his sister Aurora, and he can just feel that his sister is gone. So he wants to get her resurrected, but the panel of 5 or 6 or whatever, they don't want to do it without evidence that she's actually dead. So he gathers a crack team of mutants to help them find her body or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it goes, so it's like Dakin, Polaris, Eye-Boy, Prodigy, and who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? I forget. Oh, Prestige. And
Egg.
they follow the trip. Oh, Egg, yeah, Egg, and Amazing Dog. I think that's
Yeah, that's what they call it. The
yeah, Amazing
werewolf.
Dog.
Warpup.
Um, Werewolf. Isn't that really a baby or something like that?
Yes, it's a baby werewolf. So,
Oh my goodness, really?
mm,
Uh, so they follow the trail, and then it turns out that I guess Prestige, she can do something called chrono skimming, which is where she could see the person moving around and what they were doing. As long as she could touch the stuff and she could see all that other stuff, and then they follow
mhm.
the trail, and they eventually find her body. So they bring the body, they get it autopsied, and they do the whole Law and Order SVU, where they got the schematics, the computer stuff, and the 3D graphic is freaking great. And then you can see that the Council of Elders, they're falling asleep in the chairs because they really don't care about the whole thing. Like I don't care about the whole thing. And they say, "Hey, what do you want us to do?" They said, "Well, we probably should have a team whose job it is to investigate all this stuff." They said, "All right, great, you're it." And they say, "No, we don't." They went to Polaris and say, "No, I don't want to be it." And they're like,
Mm.
"Okay." They're like, "Hey, North Star, you're it." And he was like, "No, I don't want." Oh shit! I guess I'm it. Right. So North Star, he's the crack captain of this new investigative law and order team to figure out who's missing and everything. And then they also bring up these seeds. They're called fleet seeds.
Yeah.
That if you have some hints about a case that might be happening, and you don't want to be seen going to the Council of Elders, you can call for these little seeds and you go, and then the seeds just go up.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can go to the crack team, I forget what the name of the team is actually supposed to be. And then they give them the information.
Mm.
And then when they go to the office, the newly built office that they can point out looks like a big old shaft penis type deal. So big they gave Johnny the shutters.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry, I sneezed. I couldn't find the mute button in time.
and then when they go to the room where all the seeds are, the room is just filled with millions and millions of seeds. Turns out there's like 16.5 million mutants currently missing right now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Um, the other thing that's happening is that Magneto, um, basically confronted his daughter like, "Hey, why didn't you want to be a leader of this team? You
Yeah.
have a role here. Why didn't you go for it?" And she says, "Okay, what would you exactly describe my personality to be?"
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and,
Vacant.
and,
Vacant
and
is what I would
he's
say.
like, I don't know. Or and she says, "Yep, that's right. So I'm going to go off and I'm going to try and find out who I am." What?
Mm.
Usually, your personality is forged by the challenges you have in life. So for her to abscond from this challenge to just go mess off with the rest of her life in order to find herself, that doesn't fall right with me. But no, hey, y'all gonna do what y'all gonna do.
Mm.
Um, and then there's some rules about the rules of resurrection. No resurrection will be initiated without proof of death. An event of force protocol. Missing mutants are generated automatically under the following circumstances. Cerebro has been unable to pull a backup from a person for no less than a month.
Mm.
upon which a report is automatically generated for Sage for identification and categorization. If Sage is then unable to detect this mutant, the mutant is then categorized as officially missing, and the report is automatically generated for X Factor's investigation queue.
Makes sense.
Um, right. And then there was another amendment that said something about what if the mutant said that they didn't want to be resurrected.
Yeah. So
So there are several mutants that I know of, and I don't have a list on me right now that
mhm.
haven't been able to be resurrected. So that would be very interesting to see if that little amendment
Yeah.
had anything to do with the fact that those guys were not
Mm.
resurrected. I didn't see any new characters. There's a little boy that was just a terror,
Yeah.
all over the place and getting ready to kick Mr. Amazing Duck, the werewolf or whatever.
Hmm.
But they didn't give him a name. There was his mom and everything, but there was really no new characters or nothing new in this book. And
Yeah.
the reason why I pulled that out is because this was supposed to be a $200 book.
Shut up. Who's paying 200?
This is not this is not what speculators are paying. That's what Marvel is charging for the grand book. So go ahead, Johnny. Tell me why this is a $200 book.
Well, okay. So, I have no idea why it's a 200. I have no idea. I wish I could. Um, the I didn't mind this. I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was a fun little kind of side trip that has more longevity in it than the Marauders book, to be honest. And it's
Sure.
definitely got more longevity in it than Fallen Angels because that's already been cancelled. Um,
Terrible, but
yeah.
go ahead.
And I've always had a soft spot for Polaris. So, and if you think of the people on the team, you've got Polaris and you've got Rachel Summers. Um, you're kind of thinking they're pretty powerful characters in their own right. So they're going to get some shenanigans. The art style's a little bit different, I think, than what we've seen previously. Who do we say the art was by? Let me just check my notes. So David Baldian. He's gone for a more like a cartoony approach, and the problem being, if it wasn't, in fact, the first time I looked at this, I missed the fact that the word John Paul was in the very first panel because I just skimmed it, and I thought, what's Wolverine doing in this book? Because that first time you see him and he's all got his bouffant black hair and the way his jawline's drawn in, I'm like, Wolverine, well, and then obviously when I've gone to read it proper, it's like, oh yeah, it says John Paul, so I know where I'm at now. It's I've dropped the Xbox from my pull list because nothing was happening much. This is a long-winded story to explain the team. I think it does go on a little bit when you think about the amount of powers that are on play there. But still, I think out of the books that we've read this week, I think this is my favourite.
Okay.
So for that, I'm going to flame it on. There you go.
So, okay, yeah. I mean, that's fair enough. It was
Thanks.
entertaining. Yeah, I mean, it was entertaining. There was some good moments in here.
I
Um,
liked the bit where Rachel and Hope had a moment because you forget that they're actually related. So that was good. I like that. That was cool.
yeah, I'm still trying to find the name of this new team, X Factor, to lead the new X Factor investigations. That's all it's called.
X Factor investigations. So Jessica
Yes.
Jones has got some kind of competition now.
Well, she can't. Well, can she get to Krakoa?
I doubt
She
it.
is.
Is she mutant?
She was an experiment, right?
Uh,
So that's the question. Like, if you were an experiment, um,
All right. So if you were mutated rather than a mutate, can you get to Krakoa? Because that would also mean that Spider-Man couldn't get to Krakoa because he's not a mutant. In fact, we spent a whole year back in the 90s saying the non-mutant superhero. So there you go. Captain America couldn't get there because again he's not a mutant because he's mutated thanks to the super soldier serum.
But here's the deal. Here's the way it works, right? There are certain things. So for instance, the reason why Hulk was able to be mutated the way he was by the gamma X-rays is because he had
Gene that allows him to
mutant
survive the
gene.
gamma rays. Yeah, you could argue the same for Spider-Man. He's irradiated spider bite. Yeah.
Same thing for Captain America. Every person that's ever had the X gene, they had they had to have that mutant or has the X powers. They had to have the mutant gene in order to do that. So think back to um, uh, that new Weapon H, right? There
Hmm.
was like 20 guys that died trying to go through that process because they didn't have the correct gene. But because he had that correct gene, which is mutant gene, he was able to accept it, and now he's just walking around. We don't know where he is.
So here's my question then: if people, this is my last question, just
Mhm.
a ponder question. I don't need an answer. Write your answers on a postcard. Um, if Marvel characters that have been experimented on survived because of a latent mutant gene, therefore making them effective mutants, what's the point of Krakoa in the first place? And all the superheroes, with the exception of like Hawkeye, Mockingbird, Iron Man, everybody. So basically, this Krakoa is only stopping 3 people in the Marvel universe getting there. Everybody else can get there apart from Hawkeye, Mockingbird, and Iron Man.
Yeah. Think about it.
Well,
Technically, Captain Marvel should be able to get there. Well, no, because she's Kree, so
so
I
she's
don't know
half
how
and
that
half.
works.
She's half and half.
Half and half. Yeah.
She's half Disney.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Hickman, I want answers. Answer that
Yeah,
instead of
give
all
us
this
some
other
answers.
stuff. Instead of giving us another crazy ass book, answer all the questions that I have about this freaking island. And that's what I'll spend my money on. Vices, Law and Order, Crime SVU, and freaking and the whole man, that whole explanation where they went to explain to the elders what's going on and how they figured out who killed who. That was ridiculous. That was a waste of panels. But
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. This book was like it's a long story. I can see you going to a comic convention next year with Jonathan Hickman there, and you're just bombarding him with questions, and the queue will be getting longer and longer, and everyone will be like, "Dude, that dude in the front's hogging all his time, man. That dude in the front."
like that's not possible. Like no. And he says, so what we thought was like, no, you didn't think that. You weren't thinking at all, were you? Because if you were thinking, you would have had this, and then no, I'm not going to accept that. No, go back and write it. No, where you going? No, right now, start writing. I want to see what
Yeah.
you're going to write.
Here's a pen. Don't sign my
Yeah,
book. Start writing.
I'll tell you
Go.
what. Don't let me meet him in the streets. We're going to have a misery situation on our hands.
The world of Excellent.
Oh
All
my
right. Okay.
goodness.
So our last book is a bit of a blast from the past in the fact that it's Amazing Spider-Man number 45, written by Nick Spencer, art by, for some people, the Spider-Man artist Mark Bagley, or Bagley, depending on your accent. Inks by John Dell and Andy Owens. Colors by David Curiel. And letters by VC's Joe. Tell you what, Joe Caramanga, he's been doing some overtime, hasn't he?
Absolutely. I hope he has a team or something out there
I'd
that can help him out. I hope that's just the name of the company and not just the name of the guy who's sitting there with an arthritic hand, freaking trying to get all this thing going. Like, man,
I'd be impressed if he doesn't like mix up the scripts. That'd be class.
oh,
Which I've said before. All right, so Amazing Spider-Man 45. In the midst of the nightmares, in the midst of there's no Mary Jane, there is a villain from the past. We are talking about the killer of Captain Jean DeWolf, or Jean DeWolf again, depending on your accent. We are talking about the Sin Eater returns. Bum bum bum. Whew. Lucas,
yeah.
what did you think after such a grand a grand introduction there? Amazing Spider-Man 45.
Oh, Marvel. Oh, Marvel.
Right, before you go there, right, just hold that thought. I was in the comic book shop this morning where I buy back issues and was just talking about comics, and he said Amazing Spider-Man 45 was the best issue of Amazing Spider-Man he's read in a long time. At which point I left. But no, carry on.
He said that this was the best when half of it was I forget the name of this. She's not even a detective. She's a Detective Charlie Cooper,
She's the
which I
forensic.
don't understand. Yeah, she's a forensic. Like, so I don't know how some cities work, but I guess if you can be a forensics guy, person, and detective, that's whatever. And that's what half the book is. It's half of her is having this little dichotomy, talking inside of her mind about explaining who she is and what's been going on with her life and yada yada yada. Once again, I don't care about all that stuff. I don't care who you are. This is a Spider-Man book. I paid my 4.99 for Spider-Man. You give me Spider-Man. You don't give me some sad chick. All right. Unless Spider-Man is. That's what's even crazier is that at no point in this book does this person and Spider-Man even link up. So how is this the Spider-Man book?
Well, she's kissed Peter Parker in the past,
Uh,
and just yeah, in the Marvel universe, who hasn't, right? You
yeah,
do
but
get
yeah,
you get to
Spider-Man's a hoe. Look,
yeah.
Spider-Man's a gigolo. So let's just leave it at that. He's all over with Mary Jane. He's out there dipping with Black Cat. He's out there dipping with Detective Charlie Keeper. He's got his little fingers, swingly fingers all over the place, right?
He's got his
You
web
know,
shooters all over the place. There's,
just
there's
just
webs
just
here,
web,
there's webs there, it's oh
just
man.
yeah,
So
man,
webs
just
there.
web shoot everybody. Oh, Peter Parker, you are disgusting, man. You are without morals. I can't pass this off to my kids. Come on, man. So finally we get to Spider-Man, and he's just so I do want to bring up one thing, which is interesting because there was that whole it's a support group for people that are family members or lovers or whatever of superheroes, and it turns out she is part of that group. So for months now, the last person of that group was blacked out. So it turns out that person is Detective Charlie Cooper.
Could
That's
have,
it. That's the only interesting thing.
could have been. It's not definitive. The fact that you just see it. I mean, it could be.
Well, there. So I've seen all 4 or 5 of the other people so far, and there was only one person that was in doubt,
It was
and yeah, it was
okay.
her. Turns out it was her.
Cool.
To include Mary Jane, you could see her probably like, even though it's pixelated, you can see her on like the left hand side. So
Mm.
now we know it's her. Um, Oh, I guess one thing is, Mary Jane did sit down with Detective Cooper, so that's some type of cross connection other than the kiss and everything. But finally we get a sad, depressed Peter Parker because he's missing his woman because his woman stood him up. She couldn't get to where he is, so he had all these dinner plans set up, but he can't do it because she had stuff to do. And he's a sad, broke, lonely Spider-Man, which is not what I once again not what I paid my money for. Up until uh, up until this car is crashing through these crowds, and it turns out it's Overdrive.
Yeah.
It says, "Hey, Overdrive is this guy who could turn any vehicle into a supercharged speedster, and is now mowing down people in the streets."
Wasn't that the villain in one of the Batman cartoons?
Most
Gearhead.
likely,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
Gearhead.
most likely he's been around.
Mm,
So yeah, it could be.
yeah.
Um, and then Spider-Man hops on the car and he's trying to talk to Overdrive like, "Hey man, you gotta freaking pull it over." But Overdrive, he's scared, pantless. He's like, "Hey man, if I can't stop, or else he's gonna catch me." And Spider-Man is looking back, he's like, "Okay, there's nobody. This guy has obviously lost it." So finally, he gets him to. I forget whether he pulled him all the car over or he crashes the car.
Crashes the car, yeah.
Yeah, crashed his car, and then the guy's like, "Man, I had to do it. I had to do it." And then finally, the Sin Eater shows up. Now Sin Eater is an old character, but here's why people might have missed it or been interested because I missed the same thing. Right when I was looking through the catalogs, I was like, "Oh, Sin Eater." And I have no idea who it is. And it turns out Sin Eater's an old character, so I was like, I'm not gonna order that much. Well, the panel that makes this the most interesting is that there's a little detective. What you call it? What do you call those? little things. I forget
The
the little.
shield, the badge.
Yeah, the badges. There you go, badges. But instead of having the name of the old Sin Eater, it has the name of a new last name, the Wolf. Um,
Yeah.
so that's interesting. That means that it might be a new Sin Eater. It might not be the last one. So that's very interesting to me. Um, Otherwise, this book is very, very silly, very, very silly. Not the way I want to see my Spider-Man. But nothing else, it's interesting just for that particular one. What
Well,
do you think?
not to debunk your theory too much, but the original Sin Eater killed Captain Jean de Wolf and kept her badge as a memento. That's what the guy was doing. He used to kill them and then keep a part of them as like to carry the sin, basically. The book was, I want to say, Spectacular Spider-Man, but I could be wrong. But it was definitely written by Peter David, and it had art by, in at least one of the issues, Rick Leonardi. Um, it's a 4 issue run. It's also where Daredevil and Peter Parker share identities and they kind of work out each other's. So that's good. The death of Jean DeWolf is one of the classic Spider-Man stories. What annoys me is that for all this hoopla about Spider-Man getting back to being Spider-Man, Nick Spencer has given us a rehashed Craven, therefore spoiling Craven's Last Hunt. He's doing this, so therefore spoiling the Sin Eater story, which didn't, it's a one and done. It doesn't need anything else after that. I kind of think if you try and do something original, let's get something going. Let's really pull the bells and whistles out. This is just, I think Spider-Man has been my most consistently disappointing book, month in, month out, with maybe the
Ooh.
exception of the Avengers, which I think has been so terrible recently. So when you think these are the cornerstones of the Marvel books, the Avengers and Spider-Man are probably the most instantly recognizable characters to drag John Smith off the street into a comic book store. And when you get them in there, you greet them with this book. On the flip,
Yeah.
I'll say I'm not a big fan of Mark Bagley or Bagley. I've said that a million times. But I will say, other than the pictures of Peter Parker, because I don't like the way he draws faces, I was quite okay with this. I think this is some solid work. It's definitely a mature style of art from Bagley, which reflects, I guess, Peter where he is at the moment. But for me, this book, it's an Invisible Woman. It's Invisible Woman. I was going to clobber it because they shouldn't be sending it back, but yeah, what the hell? If I clobber it, I've hit all of them. I've hit all the Fantastic Four if I clobber this book. Clobber! There you go. Yeah. Just leave the Sin-Eater alone. It's such a well crafted story. You don't need to bring him back.
So so as far as covers, there was something very interesting that happened.
Okay.
Um, Going into the last couple weeks, or actually last 3 weeks, um, very, very late, there was another cover for this particular book that was offered. I mean,
Really?
and it was within the last 2 days, right? It was a photo of Spider-Man um, inside the flame of the Statue of Liberty, right? He was just inside there, and it looked pretty cool, right?
Uh-huh.
Very shadowy, very darkish. And then this Wednesday passed by, and none of the shops got it. Y'all
Mm.
ordered it. So, um, so that means to me, I know something important is happening in this book. There's a cover out there that nobody got, that everybody ordered, nobody got. Um, so if your store got it, you can hold on to that bad boy. Um, but it's very interesting because I was just checking a couple of other stores and they didn't get it either. So um, that's all I'm saying, and I'm going to keep an eye on it to see if anything else happens with this book.
Cool. There you go. So keep an eye out for a true ghost cover, not one of these special ones that is just down the line. But yeah, there you go. Right, okay, so there's your 4 books. That's the Marvel Universe for this week via the No Prize podcast. Thank you, Lucas, for spending the time. Really appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Your insights are always spot on. Very good. Excellent. Well done. So all that's really left for me to say is don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favourite podcasts, including the Definitive Crusade, Outside the Panels, and of course, Lucas's favourite, Hammered Heroes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
tequila is optional on Hammered
right.
Heroes.
So if you make sure that you hit up Comic Crusaders Instagram. We need 1,000 people subscribers to the Instagram. So hit up the Instagram. Make sure you hit the poll for the Comic Crusaders YouTube as well as the Undercover Capes.
Cool.
Pay attention to this because I'm also going to be doing on either later on this week some previews, catalog stuff, to ask everybody what they want to buy and give some insight to that stuff. And also, there's some stuff in the works with Pull Box, if you guys know what that is. So stand by for that one.
There you go.
Like,
so keep it UCPN. That's kind of the message. Excellent. All right, guys, that's it. We're out. We'll see you in a fortnight. Make mine Marvel, and adios.